All right, we are live for another episode, and on today's episode, alongside co-host Bianca Léger, we interview a mother, a communications coach, emotions coach, lead coach of the Chrysalis Group of companies, co-founder of Girls Changing the World, co-founder of the I Am Festival, and a program facilitator for the Canadian Mental Health Association, passionately pursuing every opportunity to spread love. Welcome to the Wonder Circle, Tracy Thibodeau.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here.
So
Great.
the goal of these conversations is really to uplift, inspire, and empower everyone tuning into this frequency. And the first question is a real positive one, and that is, Tracy Thibodeau, what do you love about your world right now?
Ugh. What do I love about my world right now? I am so blessed to get to live in such alignment with what I'm here to do in all of my projects. That's probably what I love about my world is I get to show up at my work every day doing what I absolutely love to do. And it just doesn't feel like there's much friction in a time where you would expect there to be.
Mm-hmm. So before we get into more about what that work is, your primary work being a lead coach at the Chrysalis Group of companies, you wear so many different hats and all the roles that I listed in that bio. And I feel one way we get to know our guests, and for the listeners to get to know our guest, is to ask them, what is your mission? All these companies you work for and represent all have missions, and we as individuals also ought to be aware of ours. That serves as our guiding star in all that we do, whether that be our personal, professional, and everywhere in between. So right here, right now, it's always changing, but in this moment, what is your current mission here in this reality plane, Tracy?
My current mission, I would say that I am currently on a mission to just inspire others to new ways of being and relating to each other.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what are the various means that you're currently doing that?
Oh, that's the fun part. So I work with a team. I maybe wouldn't use lead coach, but I lead the coaching program there. So I get to work with a team of coaches and supporting a group of companies. There's 4 companies that we support the humans there to cultivate the art of being human. So I get to do it there. And I just got out of a coaching call just before now, where they were just sharing at the end how after working with a coach, they now relate more the humanness, their humanness has been impacted. And I was just that's amazing. So yeah, I do it through my work as in the coaching program at Chrysalis. I do it through my work with mothers and daughter workshops with the social enterprise that I co-founded, Girls Changing the World. I get to do it in the work I do with I Am Festival and bringing people together for community and mind, body, soul integration, transformational experiences. So I've managed to find all of these different ways that I get to just participate and act out my mission.
I am so curious to know how you got to that point, because it's so true. We need that. We need that level of connection in all those aspects. And often we don't see that in the business industry. I can't wait to find out what got you here.
It's just bizarre how things line up. I really do have this belief that things are happening perfectly on time. And when you don't know why, that's when you can get most excited. Because, when things are hard, it's like you can get most excited because this is all going to make sense eventually.
Mm-hmm.
The journey has been quite long. I don't know where to start.
Wherever you wish.
Yeah.
Where do I start? Well, so I've always been had my eye on being like the professional and like the corporate, climbing the corporate ladder and like pursuing that, like all the, the titles and all the things that came with like success as I'd seen it. I was going to be a marketing professional and I'd wear fancy suits and I'd be in the boardroom. And like, that was a vision that I'd set for myself. And then I started out, my career across a bunch of different companies. I'd run my own companies and eventually got to work with this company called IQ Metrics, who is just like in their DNA, entrepreneurial spirit. So I bounced around in a whole bunch of roles there for pretty much almost a decade. And, through any career, you go like ups and downs. And at one point things were just I wasn't as engaged and I wasn't bringing my best self to work, and that was being felt. And I wasn't feeling as inspired. And so what I ended up doing was to do a lot of reflection work. Like things do, we'd ended up doing a bunch of moves in our life and new people had come in, and these new people had introduced me to some new concepts. One of them was coaching. So this was back in 2014. So I got into coaching and I like learned more about it, learned more about myself, and took my own training, got kind of more into that. And my husband and I have always done living on purpose, which is just always like spend time just thinking about what matters. And so every week, a weekend every year, we'll go book a hotel room and just spend 2.5 days just diving into our life together, just like you would do with like an executive retreat, like a corporate retreat. The first time we talked about it, I was all excited. We'll do a couples retreat, but it turned out it was like not that at all. But we've been doing that for 20 years together. And so when I wasn't feeling as inspired in my work, we kind of like did the retreat and dug in and started just making movements outside of work to get those parts of my life more full. So building up relationships and like my social world and like the things that filled me up, doing more in the community and this, my contributions back to community. So co-founded Girls Changing the World. That's when I Am came to us. And so got to do these passion projects and really got to learn more about wholeness and what happens, what really matters, when the whole human and the career and the success and all those things they just weren't as sexy anymore when you're just feeling inspired and you're contributing back to bigger things, bigger than yourself. But I still worked there and I was still like, it's a great company. It's a great company. Eventually, I got into some fun projects that really got me excited again for a while. And fast forward to 2019, I guess I would say, I think 2019, when again, just like, there's this phase of my life that I went through where there's some abrupt changes at work that entirely just deconstructed my ego, just obliterated it. There was nothing left of my identity as I'd known it. And it happened so abruptly. And so I kind of went into I would say a spiral, but it was very quick because of all the work I'd been doing, for decades ahead of it. And when I came out, kind of came out of this little transition phase of my life, and I looked around at the company that I worked for 10 years or however long it was at the time. And I found an opportunity there to contribute in a different way and bring different ideas. And what the company that I work for is trying to accomplish is quite bold. And so I proposed the idea of incorporating a coaching program into this vision that we have for being a place where people can bring their whole selves to work so that they're bringing all of their energy to like benefit everybody. Because if you go to work and it gives you energy, if you leave at the end of the day and you have more energy than you had when you went there, you get to take that back to your family. You get to take that back to your communities, and the world just gets better because of it. So it's a bold vision, helping people to bring their whole selves to work so that they're aligned with what they want to be doing and so that they're thriving and, and flourishing, and then getting to bring that back to their communities. And so Chrysalis was just, they they were supportive of this idea of starting a coaching program, and we've just continued to grow from there. We're a group of companies, we're 4 different companies, we're always hiring, and it's to create this environment for people to, come and get to be their best selves, and then contribute back to the communities.
Wow. Oh my God.
That's the fastest I've probably ever told my life story.
Oh my God, there's so much in there. And it's so inspiring to hear how when things weren't feeling so aligned, how you were taking action right away. And it sounds like you had that in you to really lead yourself and really keep moving in the direction that pulls you. That's super inspiring.
I was when I was very young, I was in a car accident, and I had to get help. We were out in the middle of the country. I think it was 12, and so I was running for help, and my sister was unconscious in the ditch. She was older than me, and I had to get to this farmhouse that was way off in the distance. And I was running and running, and I would get tired, and you'd be like, I can't make it, I just can't. And like this idea came to me, and you might call it like a voice, or what you're instead of the critic, instead of that saboteur, I had like a cheerleader pop up that day, just saying like, yeah, you'll make it. Like, you just have to put one foot in front of the other. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I think ever since that day, when something kind of knocks me down, I'm kind of reminded that like, okay, but like just put one foot in front of the other and then see what happens. So that's been really useful when you kind of get the wind taken out of your sails with life.
Wow. Oh my God. I had chills while you said that story. I like picture you running like that. That's like out of a movie. It's crazy, but it's so true. We need to be our own cheerleaders. And I'm so happy that for the people who don't have that voice being so loud for them, who put themselves down, that there are people like you to help them also rise. That's so valuable.
So Tracy, how would you advise someone that you work with, someone that you help, that are feeling stuck, that are feeling that place of stuckness that you were, but are incapable of taking that action because they're locked into that mud by the shoulds of society, religion, their family, whatever that may be? How do you help them and advise them to push past those shoulds and move forward, following their heart, attending to their must?
That's a big question. Everyone needs something different in a moment. I think it's really important to honor that. Some people need to just sit in it for a day. Some people need to sit in it and just feel it. And you kind of have to honor that process of holding space for someone to grieve and to let go and to feel the bad, because we don't need to run from bad. It's okay to feel bad for a while. That's okay. So I think my answer is really different for everyone, because it really depends of like, well, what do you want? Like, what do you want 5 years from now to look like? What do you want next week to look like? Everyone has different kind of time horizons that you talk to them about, right? So what do you want 10 years from now to look like? Okay, you can't see 10 years. Well, like, what's a month from now? What was the last time that you felt joy? What was that about? What was happening in those moments? Where can you see yourself finding more joy, next week or 5 years from now? And then from there, like, once you know what you want, what that vision looks like, then you can figure out the how. What it really starts with, like, seeing it. And sometimes people can't see it until they've felt, into that grossness of the moment. And then you just support them in, like, I like to call it the dirty bath water. When you sit in the bathtub and you sit there so long that the water gets cold, and you can just sit there and you can be grumpy and you can just like, it's gross, and like, you can just sit there. That's fine. You can do that. And you can complain about the water being cold. That's fine for you to do for a little while. But eventually you're going to have to make some choices. You're either going to have to pull the drain, or you're going to need to add some more hot water. Like, you're going to eventually have to do something. And so how long do you want to sit in your dirty bath water? I'm totally here to support you, but how long?
Mhm.
Can you think of a success story of you helping someone through this process, or even yourself, a recent example where you helped yourself get out of this dirty bathwater?
Yeah, I think people usually do it for themselves. When I hold space for someone to kind of, see what's next. It's just, yeah, it's such an incredible experience. There's like, as humans, we have this ability to like symbolically create meaning and life, right? Like humans are one of the very few, if any other species that can go and create this future that doesn't exist yet, and then go and move toward it. And so anytime that we're like, helping someone to get unstuck, it really is helping them to symbolically create a future that doesn't exist yet that they want. So I've done that so many times for myself through the ups and downs of my career and like my relationships. And it's just like, okay, well, what do I want? Like, what can I see like what could be possible? And where can I, and where might I go? And how does it feel when I think about being there? Like, what do I notice? How does that feel? And I'm like, okay, I'm feeling it. I'm emotionally attached to it. That's how we can symbolically create things, right? Now we're emotionally attached to it. We believe it to be true. And then we can start to like act and move and commit to moving towards this future that feels like real, like it's just waiting for us.
Mhm.
I think the name of your company that you work for and you coach at, Chrysalis, I think the name of the company, Chrysalis, when I was reading about that on the website, is very fascinating. I think it really applies to what we're talking about right now. So could we get into that name, Chrysalis? What is that?
Yeah. When I first heard it, I was just like, oh shit, yes, that's exactly what it's recently, like that name has emerged and just very recently. It and it's really about that transformational period. I don't know if you know, like a monarch butterfly, when it goes, it actually like creates its cocoon out of itself. And then it goes and deconstructs itself into like 7 cells. And then it turns itself into a butterfly. So it literally has to like eat itself and turn it into a cocoon, dissolve, and then become a butterfly. And it can't know that there's a butterfly happening. It doesn't know that. So when you think about that metaphor, and like what that means for a company that is like this transformational cocoon for companies to evolve and emerge and grow, that don't necessarily know what they'll be next. It's just such a cool opportunity for companies, especially in the world today where things are happening so fast, and you need these spaces where you can create this safe space for a company to like experiment and transform and emerge, and who knows what's next.
Oh my God. That's so fascinating. I didn't know that about butterflies. That's crazy.
It's not all butterflies. There's some that actually like spin a cocoon, but there are some that literally use their bodies as the cocoon and dissolve inside of it to become what's next.
And the fact that they don't know what they're going to be, it's such a perfect metaphor for anybody who's like, what is my next embodiment? What is my next step? I love that.
So for someone asking themselves those questions, what is my next embodiment? What is my next step? How could one tap into that answer?
I always start with why, right? Start with those Simon Sinek says, purpose. Like, what are you here for? What's your meaning? What is it about you being here that has meaning? And there's a whole bunch of stuff online that you can go into, like find your why and like storytelling and like themes across your life, like how you find, like, what are the things where you just felt so aligned in that moment. I remember when I was doing one of my first like large Girls Changing the World workshops, and I'm sitting in a big conference room in a hotel, and I've got just dozens and dozens of moms and daughters in the room, and as they, as we're wrapping up and we're kind of sharing some stories. And you just felt this, like, I am exactly where I am supposed to be, doing exactly what I am supposed to be doing. And it just felt like there was literal runway lights ahead of me of like, I am on the path I am supposed to be on. This is exactly it. And not everyone experiences it to that. I've been so blessed with the work I've done over 20 years of like intentional retreats and living on purpose to be able to move closer and closer to alignment. But those moments when you feel like, this is where I'm supposed to be right now. And when you start to track those, and then you can kind of build themes across all of these stories to know, oh, here's the common theme. Like, I need to be supporting other people in being their best selves. I need to be sharing stories. I need to be creating. I need to be building. I need to be whatever that theme might be. Like, that's your why. So when you know why, everything else is easy.
So you work with a lot with mothers and girls, but just really everyone in general. How can you differentiate what is your true why versus the why that you've been conditioned through media programming, through social media, through culture, through your upbringing, through your schooling? How can you differentiate what is your true heart's calling versus the calling that you've been fed to believe should be your destination? I think that is like an increasing concern, especially with the rise of the programming of all forms that we are being fed.
Yeah, the echo chamber is loud these days. I think it's, so one, I don't for a second believe that it's not possible, so long as you've had experiences that lit you up. And if you haven't yet, there's ways to get started to go try things. So, no matter where you're at, but one, don't do it alone. You can never give yourself, we're the worst observers of ourselves. We have a sense, but we are really good at making stuff up. Our egos are so smart and have helped us survive, and they're so useful in so many ways, but they're so good at telling us what they want to hear, what that part of us needs to hear. And it cannot be as helpful as having somebody else to support you. So having someone else support you in asking you questions, as you're finding your why and you're like listing your stories, what are the themes that run through them? What are the moments in time that you've been lit up, that you felt you were in flow, and you're listing all those out. And then you're having someone dive in deeper, like what specifically was about that? Like, what was the moment? What did you notice? What did you feel? Like having somebody to get you out of the echo chamber into your own reality, into the specifics where you can't just skirt over it. Have you ever taken a quiz where you're like, in your head, you're like, yeah, but you don't really think through anything, or you're doing an activity and you don't actually write it down. You're just like, yeah. And you kind of skirt through the questions, right? We'll do that to ourselves. But when you bring somebody else in, they're going to force you to really reflect, to really dig in deeper. And your truth is there. You can't deny it. It's there. It doesn't matter how much programming you have. It doesn't matter how much you've been on Instagram that day or whatever. Your truth is still there. So just finding a support system to help you find it.
Yeah, it's true.
So
it's
who is that?
It's often hard to reach out for help. It sounds like you have that ability that came to you very intuitively. Were you always kind of that support system for people, or that mirror helping them see the blind side?
No, it's so funny. I actually, like, I was a very closed, defensive, protective person. I don't know how many, like probably, 2012, 13. I was like, I don't hug, like, don't come near me. Like, this is like I was very closed off. And it wasn't until I really started to do the work. I'm so lucky my partner is also into this type of, like, into, finding your truth and living your best life and intentional living. And, when he first got me started on doing reflection and doing intentional work, you get your exercises and you start to go through them. And I was like, nah, I'm just like, I can't. Like, you get this like, like, you start peeling back layers and you find some gross things, and I just stopped. So it took years of us doing this like annual retreat before I'd actually like get vulnerable, until I'd actually be okay to be like, oh, that feels gross, and like I want to cry. Instead of stopping, I would cry. Like just like I had so many layers and so many protective layers that were really useful in my previous, in my upbringing, but weren't serving me anymore. And I realized that if I wanted to help other people, if I felt good in helping people, I really needed to be better at connecting with them. And I can't connect with them if I can't connect with myself. And so to do the hard work of just peeling back layers, and when you find something ugly, like take a break, it's okay. You don't have to do it. You're not going to do it all in a day. So
Yeah.
just years and years of peeling back the layers, and having my partner, who then introduced me to a world that just, it continues to encourage me. The I Am community, I can't say enough about. I participate because I produce the event. And so I don't have, it's like the cheating where it's like, I can just kind of wander around and like rub up against some stuff that gets me a little vulnerable, but sometimes I'm not in the space to receive it. And sometimes I am. So just being in that space and encouraging anyone to like be in that space, and participate where it feels just a little bit uncomfortable, because then you can peel back the layers. So I haven't always had that ability. I haven't even been able to connect to people until, beyond, I'd already had all my babies before I was like really able to like connect to people. So yeah, I've just been so fortunate with the projects and people who've crossed paths with me.
Mm-hmm. And your partner Maurice has played a huge role in this journey. Let's talk about what you've learned from your relationship with Maurice about the foundations to a strong relationship. And let's kind of just start from there.
Yeah, 20 years we've been together. He approached our relationship like building a good business, like something that mattered, that you wanted to last. And as dorky as it sounds, and maybe like as cold as it sounds, it works. It works in that when you sit down and you think about like, what is your mission? What is your like mission statement, your personal mission statement? And what is my mission statement? Okay, two humans who are going to do this thing together. We're not building a business, we're building a life together, which is even more important than a business, I think. So we need to really understand you and me and become the strongest team possible. So sitting down and really getting to know, like, who are you? Who am I? Like, what are your values? What are my values? Where do they work? And where do they not work? Because no two people are going to be entirely coherent for their entire lives. That's just unrealistic. So when you can say, oh, well, here's what's important to you, and here's what's important to me, and here's where they're going to be problems, you can build strategies ahead of time, and then you start to envision the future together. And I think that's probably one of the most strengthening foundations. Is we spent so much time planning, what does it look like when we're 60, that we're going to be 60 together. Sometimes along the way, we're like, I don't know how we're going to get to 60. Like, I need to leave. I can't do this. Like it's not a day, there's in 20 years, there's definitely been times where it's like, this is not working. But I see 60 with him and I see 80 with him. And then you just figure out how. And the practice, the rhythm, that ritual of every year sitting down and like, how are we doing? How are you doing? What do you want next year? What do you want to accomplish next year? What's important for you? How can I support you in getting that? And sometimes the goals conflict. Okay, well, that's going to be a problem because that's going to like detract from my life. Okay, how do we solve that? We ask questions like, what should you start doing? What should you stop doing? What could you continue doing? It's like, oh my gosh, if you would just stop like leaving the dirt pile in the kitchen floor, and leaving the broom right next to it. Every time I walk by, I just like, I know it seems petty, but this is Maurice to me, by the way. But it's like, that's something that just tells me you didn't finish this thing, that it could be cleaner if you just finished. And oh yeah, I could probably start doing that. Okay. But it's like those little things that bubble up and become irritations, and then they become, problems, and then they become like the end. We just get rid of them every year. And we've got really good at arguing. We've got really good at communicating. And we see a future together. Sometimes he's not my favorite person as my husband, but he's my best friend. And so, I'll be really clear. You know what? I need to talk to you because I'm really mad at my husband right now. And you can have a little more fun together.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. And this is all a part of the art of being human. What is that? What is the art of being human, and how do we move towards wholeness?
We are capable of so much. Humans are like, it's infinite. Like, you think about like just what we know of of the generations we have information about, and how we've progressed as we've uncovered more capabilities, even more. What happens when people come together, and now the collective capability is taking shape, and like more and more, like what we can do. We've grown up in these institutions and these organizations that were designed for a different time, in an industrial time where we're breaking down tasks, and we're being really efficient, and we're optimizing and solving complicated problems that are like, we can break them down and solve them. And that's not the world anymore. That's not the world at all. The world now is these really complex problems that are emerging at the same time we're solving them, where we can't just have somebody telling us what to do and we'll just do it and then we can be successful. Like, organizations, they can't be designed that way anymore, but we grew up in them. And so we always we're thinking from this top down hierarchical, we're thinking in this way, and this programming, and it gets in the way of us bringing everything we've got, because we're holding back, whether it's because we don't believe we can, whether we're waiting for instructions, whether we're just programmed to wait and like, what's the right answer? I don't want to be wrong, and someone will tell me what I need to do. And until I get in that position where I can tell others what to do, I need to be told what to do. Like, we're really programmed this way. And unlearning that, deprogramming that is a process, to be able to help somebody to recognize their own capability of what they could accomplish, and then to bring it to whatever they're doing. So the art of being human is just to recognize that we are complicated creatures that are emotional, social, fairly rational, but sometimes rational, and we can't escape it. And so when we can honor and engage in the emotional life of an organization, engage in the emotional life of a human, engage in the whole life of a human, and they get to bring everything that they are, what they'll contribute back to the world is exponential. And so the art of being human, cultivating the art of being human, is just about creating an environment where people can do that, where it's safe for them to, like, talk about their rough day with their dog, and they know how to talk about it and put it aside and give, and enjoy their day with their teams, and to relate at new levels. So it's about creating an environment where people can just be their whole self, which means I don't need to pretend. I don't need to wear a professional mask. I don't need to live up to some old school programming of what it means to be successful.
It's very attractive.
Very attractive. It's very fun.
Yeah, we need more of that. As you're speaking, I don't know if Derek, you were gonna ask, but the program Girls Changing the World, I used to be an elementary school teacher. I've seen I spent a lot of time with young girls. I would love to know, what does that look like? What kind of work do you do? What inspired you to start? And what is it like?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So, Girls Changing the World started with just recognizing. So I myself have grown up with just like that, the saboteur. And when I was in school, I had a hard time with social relationships. Girls can be really, they've got a lot of pain when they're figuring life out, and the way that girls express that pain is can be quite harmful. And I found myself in amidst a lot of it when I was growing up. So that was really hard. And then we had not one, not two, but three daughters. And as I'm like my oldest at the time, I think she was 6 when I started. And I was just recognizing like this emotional world that we were not connecting well on. And I just realized that in order for me to be able to be my best self, I really needed to get good at communicating with my daughters and giving them space for their emotions, and to be able to recognize the voices in their own heads and how that can get in the way of their happiness, and how other people might be showing up, might be getting in the way. And so teaching my girls about like the monkey brain and how the brain works, and it tells us stories, and like we don't have to believe those stories if they're not serving us. We can actually like choose to find other stories, and we have a lot more choice. And so trying to start that language with my daughter very early. And then I thought, this would be really helpful if she was around other girls, and moms were sharing these stories, because raising daughters is, I only have daughters, so I can't speak to raising boys, but raising daughters is hard. There's just a lot there. There's a lot, and it feels really important to do it well. It feels really, really important. And so I kicked off my first mother-daughter workshop, and just had a small group of moms and daughters come out, and we spend a day and we learn about our emotional worlds. We learn how to like check in with our bodies for signs of emotions coming up, to like back it into the stories that we might be making that are creating those emotions. And then I worked on teaching moms and daughters to be able to be partners together, so that they had an emotional language they could use, so that it's like when you're feeling yuck, you actually don't need to know what that is. You can just say, Mom, I'm feeling like, ugh, like, and you don't have to like yell about it. You can yell about it, but you can just be like, I'm just not feeling really great. And your mom can support you and like, oh, what's happening for you? So to just help moms and daughters to like build that connection, because I don't know about like that mother-daughter connection never goes away. It doesn't matter if your mom's living or not, even that mother-daughter connection never goes away. And mother can be represented in so many different ways, but when you have that bond, so I just felt that if we could help moms and daughters build that connection, and daughters always felt like they had a place to go back to, what they could do and accomplish and overcome, just felt like, they could just live a much fuller and happier life as they're going through the hard times of 9 to whenever it stops.
So is that for all age groups? You have girls starting from age 9?
Yeah, I have 2 different formats, and I just run the workshops like a couple of times a year. So I'll do like 5 to 8 or 9, and then and sometimes depending on the daughter, and then like the 9 to 15 type ranges, and the conversation is just a little bit different, but it's just teaching them about like to feel their body for what might be happening. So like, are you like all crunched up? Are you relaxed? Are you open? Are you shy? How are you? What's your body telling you? And then what might be happening for you? So we can raise some of that emotional awareness. But yeah, there's a session that's designed for like the younger kids, where it's more about play and exploring, and then one for the older, which is more about like getting into some deeper content.
I love how you just got the idea, you see the need in your own relationships, and you start something. So it started with a smaller group, and how big is it now?
Well, I haven't COVID. I haven't done one for a few years, but I think our last one we had 65 moms
Wow.
and daughters. Yeah, it's like, and then we do little breakouts, and daughters get to meet other daughters, and moms get to meet other moms. Oh, it's making me miss them.
Oh, yes, I bet they miss it too. It's that sense of community as well, and knowing that we all can use this help and guidance because we're all navigating relationships and learning
Yeah,
to communicate efficiently.
yeah,
Wow.
Yeah, I like that Bianca brought up community. I know community has played a large part in your being. Let's talk about the importance of community for you, Tracy, and how can others connect with community as you do
wow,
and find
great question.
theirs?
Yeah, so in 2011, my husband and I decided to uproot our family. My family is very close. Family Valley is like right up there. I was from Regina, or from southern Saskatchewan, living in Regina, and we were all within an hour of each other, got together every weekend. And my husband and I decided we were going to move to Manitoba, where we knew nobody, moving to a community where like zero connections with anybody. And so just the experience of intentionally finding your people has been so fulfilling. I just feel really blessed with the people that we've found through intentionally doing things. So we started with throwing house concerts. You meet one person who's got an idea, and then you say yes, just say yes a lot, and that is really helpful. So we said yes, we'll throw house concerts. Then we met like Keith McPherson, who was the one who gave us the idea about like, oh, you should throw festivals. Yes. So then IM came into being, and then we got the IM community, and we started the Girls Changing the World community, and then we've got like there's what we call the village, a group of families that like all our kids have other moms, so if they don't want to talk to me about something, they'll like talk to another village mom. And there's just this group of families that we do things together. We support each other. If you need whatever you need, I need a wig for Halloween. Oh, I got one, or like whatever it might be. Or my daughter's feeling low today. Can someone text her and just let her know? And it's like, oh my gosh, like, you send a text and like remind someone that they're beautiful. So yeah, just like intentionally growing. And it just started with like saying yes to creating something where people come together. And then some people pass through, some people stay, but everybody is like, you can just see the role that they play in the next part.
That's beautiful.
So along your journey, you've met many mentors and helpers that help you come to the realizations that you've shared with us today. So just take a moment to acknowledge some of the key mentors and helpers that have helped you, and what have been your key takeaways you learned from that you've applied into your being.
Yeah. I go through the list in my head, and it's just a really rich list. Like Maurice, it might sound hokey, your husband, but like his view on life is so different, less different now as I've grown and he's grown and we've grown together. But finding somebody who thinks of the world different than you, and staying in it, instead of like, oh, you think differently, like we're not the same, we can't hang out, we're like, there's being curious about that has been really valuable. So when I think about the helpers and mentors, so many of them are people that I got into like good debates with or big disagreements with. Now I can do it a lot more constructively. But just, yeah, so like my husband and learning from him, just like, yes, why not? Like, let's try, let's explore, let's experiment. The spirit of the entrepreneur. So my dad is also one of just like, yeah, we'll figure it out. Entrepreneurial spirit, like, yeah, this year we're gonna farm, bees, and then now we're gonna do sheep, like, just yes. So a lot of that influence. My mentors at work, to get to have entirely honest, authentic conversations where you can be in a conversation with, someone who might be viewed as, I don't know, like in the tower, like from the outside, someone might, and like you can just have the most authentic conversations and they'll reflect back to you authentically. My co-pilot at work on the coaching team, like these are people who just are real, and you can share your inner worlds in a way that they can reflect back to you, and you just keep learning more about yourself and how you're showing up in the world and how that's impacting others and what you might do that would impact others even more. So yeah, and I mean, then there's like, I have like one of my girlfriends, I wasn't really great at the female relationships, and just finding that one person who like you can argue with and you grow together, who are just real with you. I think most of my mentors and helpers are just authentic people, right? That just you spend more time with them because the conversations you have offer insights into ways of being and knowing and experimenting that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise, and they challenge you.
So love has played a crucial part in this picture that we've painted, starting with self-love. What have you learned about love, and what does love mean to you, Tracy?
I have a tattooed on I got a little tattoo on my wrist with love. What does love mean to me? At the simplest form, I really believe that there's just two things. There's love and fear. And we, the saying of like, which wolf do you feed? And when you're coming from a place of love, and you're thinking about like somebody else's experience, and you're wanting the best for them, because we're all part of the same thing. We're all part of 2021. We're all part of this right now together. And when you look at someone and you just want the best for them, and you hope they want the best for you in this experience, I think it's that feeling of connection, that's bigger than you, and that's bigger than any problem in front of you, and it's capable of transcending those problems that are in front of you. That's a great question. I'm like feeling it, and I can't explain it. I can entirely feel that connection, and that trust, and that bigger than me feeling. I think is the best way I can describe it.
Perhaps it's something that we embody. The answer to that question is something that we embody in our being.
Yeah, it's like the what would love do, when you ask that question, and you're in the middle of some fight, or you're in the middle of some conflict, or you're not understanding like somebody else's perspective, or like right now in the world is just like, what would love do? It's like, well, they would listen first. That's what love would do.
So through all the highs and lows, that is this wild ride, this journey of life, what has been the greatest life lesson you've learned on your path thus far that you feel called to share with us right here, right now?
The greatest life lesson. I think I'm still learning them. I'm learning all the time. So far, I think it's, just keep peeling back into yourself. Just keep peeling back and back to yourself. It's noisy out there, and it can be noisy in relationships, and it can be noisy in work, but just if you just keep coming back in, and like back to who you really are, and trusting in that, and then you can show up, and then you can do, and what you'll accomplish. Like, it's mind-blowing what happens when you just trust that you can peel back some layers, and it's okay. It's a little scary. Peel back some layers and see what happens next.
So beautifully said. Thank you for sharing that, Tracy. So that brings us to the final two questions that we ask all our guests. And here is question number one. In 3 words, how would you describe the experience you were having on this earth, in this reality plane that we exist in?
In 3 words. I would say wonderment. I would say, I want to say challenging, but it's not the word. It's like stretching. Yeah, I think stretching. Wonderment, stretching, and hopeful.
Lovely. And the final question, we've been all through time in this conversation examining the past, the present, and let's fast forward to the future. We're going to fast forward in the future alongside an 85-year-old Tracy Lee Thibodeau. Where are you? Who are you surrounded by? What are you doing? And what is the impact that you've left in your time here on Earth?
85, that's far. I joke that if I'm, yeah, that's far, 85. Okay, 85, I am sitting on my rocking chair with my bestie next to me, because we've actually talked about this. Sitting with my bestie next to me, and we are laughing at the ridiculousness that we have done as we've just got better at having fun in this world and taking things less seriously. And the stories that we have about that ridiculousness have, now I've got 70 years of them. So that's what we're doing.
Such a perfect way to remind us as we finish, like, get closer to wrapping things up, to not take things so seriously. It's so true. It's so true. Good reminder.
So I just want you to stay with this 85-year-old for just a moment or so longer. I want you to really feel her in your heart. And I'm going to bring us back to the present, the infinite now, where that 85-year-old still exists. And she whispers a message to you in your ear. What does she send? What does she say?
Don't forget to have fun. Yeah. Thanks for that, by the way. That's great. That's like a gift you get. A gift here I'll take with me.
Well, you've given us both a gift with this conversation, and I'm so grateful for you sharing this space with us. Bianca, do you have any last closing words for this episode?
They're words of gratitude. Those are reminders. I think I needed those reminders today to not take things so seriously. And I'm super inspired by the way that you've just taken action on the visions you've had. And yeah, I'm listening to your story, and I'm inspired by it. So thank you. Thank you for sharing it today.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
For listeners wanting to connect with you, where can they find you, Tracy?
They can find me on LinkedIn. I do all the things. Facebook. I don't do the TikTok. Busy when I call it that. Facebook, Instagram. Yeah, you can find me with any of the projects that I'm a part of.
Awesome.
Beautiful. And to close every conversation, we bring our fist in for a digital fist bump and joining in the winner circle. Boom. Thank you so much. And that's a wrap on today's conversations. Blessings.
Thank you.
Thank you.